أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. عن جابر بن عبد الله الأنصاري عن فاطمة الزهراء عليه السلام بنت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله قال سمعت فاطمة أنها قالت دخل علي أبي رسول الله في بعض الأيام فقال السلام عليك يا فاطمة، فقلت عليك السلام. قال إني أجد في بدني ضعفا، فقلت له أعيذك بالله يا أبتاه من الضعف. فقال يا فاطمة ائتيني بالكساء اليماني فغطيني به، فأتيته بالكساء اليماني فغطيته به، وصرت أنظر إليه وإذا وجهه يتلألأ كأنه البدر في ليلة تمامه وكماله. فما كانت إلا ساعة وإذا بولدي الحسن قد أقبل وقال السلام عليك يا أماه، فقلت وعليك السلام يا قرة عيني وثمرة فؤادي. فقال يا أماه إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة جدي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله. فقلت نعم إن جدك تحت الكساء. فأقبل الحسن نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا جداه يا رسول الله، أتأذن لي أن أدخل معك تحت الكساء؟ فقال وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا صاحب حوضي، قد أذنت لك. فدخل معه تحت الكساء. فما كانت إلا ساعة وإذا بولدي الحسين عليه السلام قد أقبل وقال السلام عليك يا أماه. فقلت وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا قرة عيني وثمرة فؤادي. فقال لي يا أماه إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة جدي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله. فقلت نعم إن جدك وأخاك تحت الكساء. فدنا الحسين نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا جداه، السلام عليك يا من اختاره الله، أتأذن لي أن أكون معكما تحت الكساء؟ فقال وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا شافع أمتي، قد أذنت لك. فدخل معهما تحت الكساء. فأقبل عند ذلك أبو الحسن علي بن أبي طالب عليه السلام وقال السلام عليك يا بنت رسول الله. فقلت وعليك السلام يا أبا الحسن ويا أمير المؤمنين. فقال يا فاطمة إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة أخي وابن عمي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله. فقلت نعم ها هو مع ولديك تحت الكساء. فأقبل علي نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا رسول الله، أتأذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء؟ قال له وعليك السلام يا أخي ويا وسيي وخليفتي وصاحب لوائي، قد أذنت لك. فدخل علي تحت الكساء. ثم أتيت نحو الكساء وقلت السلام عليك يا أبتاه يا رسول الله، أتأذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء؟ قال وعليك السلام يا بنتي ويا بضعتي، قد أذنت لك. فدخلت تحت الكساء. فلما اكتملنا جميعا تحت الكساء أخذ بي رسول الله بطرفي الكساء وأومأ بيده اليمنى إلى السماء وقال: اللهم إن هؤلاء أهل بيتي وخاصتي وحامتي، لحمهم لحمي ودمهم دمي، يؤلمني ما يؤلمهم ويحزنني ما يحزنهم. أنا حرب لمن حاربهم وسلم لمن سالمهم وعدو لمن عاداهم ومحب لمن أحبهم. إنهم مني وأنا منهم، فاجعل صلواتك وبركاتك ورحمتك وغفرانك ورضوانك علي وعليهم، وأذهب عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. اللهم صل على محمد. فقال الله عز وجل: يا ملائكتي ويا سكان سماواتي، إني ما خلقت سماء مبنية ولا أرضا مدحية ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مضيئة ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا في محبة هؤلاء الخمسة الذين هم تحت الكساء. فقال الأمين جبرائيل: يا رب ومن تحت الكساء؟ فقال عز وجل: هم أهل بيت النبوة ومعدن الرسالة، هم فاطمة وأبوها وبعلها وبنوها. فقال جبرائيل: يا رب أتأذن لي أن أهبط إلى الأرض ليكون معهم سادسا؟ فقال الله: نعم قد أذنت لك. فهبط الأمين جبرائيل وقال: السلام عليك يا رسول الله. العلي الأعلى يقرئك السلام، يخصك بالتحية والإكرام، ويقول لك: وعزتي وجلالي إني ما خلقت سماء مبنية ولا أرضا مدحية ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مضيئة ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا لأجلكم ومحبتكم، وقد أذن لي أن أدخل معكم، فهل تأذن لي يا رسول الله؟ فقال رسول الله: وعليك السلام يا أمين وحي الله، إنه نعم قد أذنت لك. فدخل جبرائيل معنا تحت الكساء. فقال لأبي: إن الله قد أوحى إليكم يقول: إنما يريد الله ليذهب عنكم الرجس أهل البيت ويطهركم تطهيرا. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. فقال علي لأبي: يا رسول الله، أخبرني ما لجلوسنا هذا تحت الكساء من الفضل عند الله. فقال النبي: والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واصطفاني بالرسالة نجيا، ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفيه جمع من شيعتنا ومحبينا إلا ونزلت عليهم الرحمة وحفت بهم الملائكة واستغفرت لهم إلى أن يتفرقوا. فقال علي: إذا والله فزنا وفاز شيعتنا ورب الكعبة. فقال النبي ثانيا: يا علي، والذي بعثني بالحق نبي واصطفاني بالرسالة نجيا، ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفيه جمع من شيعتنا ومحبينا وفيهم مهموم إلا وفرج الله هما، ولا مغموم إلا وكشف الله غما، ولا طالب حاجة إلا وقضى الله حاجته. فقال علي: إذا والله فزنا وسعدنا، وكذلك شيعتنا فازوا وسعدوا في الدنيا والآخرة ورب الكعبة. رحم اللہ من یقرأ سورۃ الفاتحہ.
حضرات، اس سے پہلے کہ میں جناب قبلہ ایشام ہاشم رضا صاحب سے درخواست کروں کہ تشریف لائیں، وہ حضرات جو آسانی سے بیٹھ سکتے ہیں فرش پہ، ان سے گزارش ہے کہ تھوڑا تھوڑا آگے آئیں، ایک مجلس کا ماحول بنائیں تاکہ ان کو بھی اچھا لگے، آپ کو بھی اچھا لگے. اور اس کے ساتھ ہی جناب ہاشم رضا صاحب سے درخواست گزاروں کہ تشریف لائیں. بر محمد و آل محمد صلوات.
اور محمد والے محمد صلوات. تو پڑھ لو، میں بلایا نا.
بر محمد والے محمد صلوات. بر محمد والے محمد صلوات. بی بی فاطمہ کی شان میں. عالم میں یوں شریک رسالت ہے فاطمہ، عالم میں یوں شریک رسالت ہے فاطمہ، رحمت نبی ہے سایہ رحمت ہے فاطمہ، رحمت نبی ہے سایہ رحمت ہے فاطمہ، مریم کا فاطمہ سے بھلا کیا مقابلہ، مریم کا فاطمہ سے بھلا کیا مقابلہ، مریم تو عابدہ ہے عبادت ہے فاطمہ، مریم تو عابدہ ہے عبادت ہے فاطمہ، عالم میں یوں شریک بر محمد والے محمد صلوات.
اللہم صلی اللہ محمد بارے دیگر نعرے صلوات. کام آ جائے گی امت کی شفاعت کے لیے، کام آ جائے گی امت کی شفاعت کے لیے، آپ کی چادر سہارا ہے قیامت کے لیے، کام آ جائے گی امت کی شفاعت کے لیے، صنف نسواں
کی ہدایت آپ ہی کے ہاتھ ہے، وقف کر دی زندگی پوری شریعت کے لیے، کام آئے گی امت کی شفاعت کے لیے۔ یا علی تم کو خدا نے خلقت آدم سے چن لیا تھا، فاطمہ زہرا کی نسبت کے لیے، چن لیا تھا فاطمہ زہرا کی نسبت کے لیے، جائے گی امت کی شفاعت۔ سر بلندی میں مساوی اس کا ہو سکتا ہے کون، جس پہ اترا انجم اظہار فضیلت کے لیے، کام جائے گی امت کی شفاعت کے لیے۔ عرش اعظم پر کبھی رکتے نہ ہو جس کے قدم، آپ کے در پر وہ رکتا ہے اجازت کے لیے، آپ کے در پر وہ رکتا ہے اجازت کے لیے، کام جائے گی امت کی شفاعت۔ آپ کی چادر سہارا ہے قیامت کے لیے، کام جائے گی محمد والے محمد صلوات۔
صلی علی محمد والے محمد۔
فاتحہ۔ اور محمد والے محمد صلوات۔ مریم سے بھی بطول کو رتبہ سے ملا، مریم سے بھی بطول کو رتبہ سے ملا، بابا اسے رسول سا خیر الورا ملا، بیٹا ایک شہید رہے کبریا ملا، شوہر ملا تو خلق کا عقدہ کشا ملا، شوہر ملا تو خلق کا عقدہ کشا، ہر ایک اپنے مرتبے میں انتخاب ہے، زہرا ہے بے مثال علی لاجواب، زہرا ہے بے مثال علی لاجواب، کہتی تھی یاد کر کے نبی کو وہ نوح گئے، بابا تمہارے غم نے کیا مجھ کو درد، بابا بطول ڈھونڈنے جائے تمہیں، مدت ہوئی کہ آپ کی مجھ کو نہیں خبر، مدت ہوئی کہ آپ کی مجھ کو نہیں، یہ بین کر کے فاطمہ جو غل مچاتے تھے، آواز کے قبروں سے آواز کے قبروں سے آتی تھی، کھولے تمام آل محمد نے سر کے بال، غش ہو گئے حسین و حسن فاطمہ کے لال، میں کیا لکھوں جو زینب و کلثوم کا، مردے کے منہ سے ملتی تھی منہ کو بسد ملا، مردے کے منہ سے ملتی تھی منہ کو بسد ملا، فضا بھی لاش پاک پہ قربان جاتی تھی، زہرا کے پاؤں آنکھوں سے رو رو لگاتی تھی، زہرا کے پاؤں آنکھوں سے رو رو لگاتی تھی، فرماتے ہیں علی ولی شاہ لافتہ، تا زندگی تو فاطمہ کا ہاتھ خم رہا، پر غسل میں نے میت زہرا کو جب دیا، چاہ کے اس کجی کو کروں ہاتھ سے جدا، چاہ کے اس کجی کو کروں ہاتھ سے، دل تنگ آخر ہو گیا مجھ دل ملول کا، سیدھا ہوا نہ جناب بطول، سیدھا ہوا نہ جناب بطول، اس دم جناب شبار و شبیر نے آئے وداع لاشے کو دل اپنا تھامتا، تب فاطمہ کے بندے کفن کھل گئے تمام، نکلے کفن سے دستے بطول فلک مقام، نکلے کفن سے دستے بطول فلک، کس درجہ چاہتی تھی ہر ایک نور عین، لپٹا لیا گلے سے حسن اور حسین، لپٹا لیا گلے سے حسن اور حسین کو، زینب نے بھائیوں کو کیا لاش سے جدا، رو کر علی نے شبار و شبیر سے لب اب اٹھاؤ ماں کا جنازہ بسد کا، آئی صدا نہ دو، آئی صدا نہ دو انہیں تکلیف مرتا، آئی صدا نہ دو انہیں تکلیف مرتا، یہ بوجھ تیرا احمد مرسل اٹھا، تابوت فاطمہ کا محمد اٹھائے گا، تابوت فاطمہ کا محمد اٹھائے گا، مریم سے بھی بطول کو رتبہ سوا ملا، محمد علیہ محمد صلوات۔
حضرات، اس سے پہلے کہ میں قبلہ و کعبہ مولانا سے درخواست گزاروں کہ وہ رونق افروز ممبر ہو، آپ حضرات سے ایک کل کی مجلس کا اعلان سماعت فرمائیے۔ جناب عروج صاحب کے بھائی صاحب کا انتقال ہو گیا ہے، اور کل بھی 7 بجے مجلس اعزاز یہاں منعقد ہوگی، جس سے قبلہ مولانا رضوان رضوی صاحب خطاب فرمائیں گے۔ اس کے ساتھ ہی نہایت ادب و احترام سے میں قبلہ و کعبہ سے درخواست گزار ہوں کہ تشریف لائیں اور رونق افروز ممبر ہوں۔ ور محمد و آل محمد صلوات۔
رحم الله من قرأ سورة الفاتحة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله الذي قصرت عن رؤيته أبصار الناظرين وعجزت عن نعته أوهام الواصفين. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين أبي القاسم محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. أما بعد، فقد قال الله تبارك وتعالى وقوله الحق وهو أصدق القائلين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل إن كنتم تحبون الله فاتبعوني يحببكم الله ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم والله غفور رحيم. صدق الله العلي العظيم. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Condolences to all the mu'mineen and mu'minat, and especially Imam of our time, Imam Mahdi, Ajjalallahu ta'ala farajahu sharif, salam. On this sad occasion upon which we commemorate the Shahadat of Khatun Jannat, Sayyidatun Nisa al-Alameen, Fatima Zahra, Salamullahi alayha, Salam. Of course, there are, and this is just a reminder that we have two dates that are specifically marked in the calendars as far as the Ayyam Fatimiyya are concerned. First set of dates is the 13th day of Jumadi al-Ula. So tonight is the Shab and the night of 13th. And the second date is, of course, third day of Jumadul Akhirah or Jumadul Saniya. And you know the difference between the two, that there are 20 days apart, and hence the two riwayat which talk about the two different dates. Either it was 75 days after the wafat of Rasulullah or 95 days after the wafat of Rasulullah. And this ikhtilaf has been there since the beginning because of how the wordings or the word was written in the books of riwayat. Because in Arabic, if you write khamsa wa sab'een or khamsa wa tis'een, basically they would be both written in the same way if there were no Arab and if there was no harakat and there were no dots, right? In the old Rasmul Khat of Arabic, they would not use the dots that you have for the ta and for the ba and for the noon and for the ya. So it would make it very difficult for one to understand whether the riwayat is mentioning the word 70, which is sab'een, or mentioning tis'een, which is 90. And therefore we have these two dates which are possible dates for the shahadat of this great lady. Now, of course, when you ask this sort of mas'ala to our maraji, it's not a maqam of fatwa. It's not something which has to do with haram or halal, so they're not going to come out and give a fatwa on this. But maraji have always responded by saying that both of these days should be held in commemoration. Ayatul Khamenei says to the extent that the 13th of Jumadil Ula should be considered the first of the Fatimiyya, and the 3rd of Jumadi al-Akhirah should be considered the second Fatimiyya. And in some places you have the series of Majalis on the first date, and in some places you have the series of Majalis on the second date. It is all about showing our love and gratitude toward this ni'mat of having a majlis and this personality whom we revere a great deal, and there's the azamat of this personality, and for that matter, both of these dates are commemorated. Now, in Masjid-e-Ali tradition, we've been doing one majlis on this night, and we've been holding 3 majalis or sometimes 5 majalis on the second day. So inshallah, on the 3rd of Jumadi al-Akhir, the next month after 20 days, which will actually fall around Christmas time. So you'll have majalis most likely on 25th of December, 26th of December, and 27th of December. Of course, these are days of ta'til, and they're holidays in, of course, in this part of the world and many parts of the world. So therefore, take advantage, come in large numbers. Ayatollah Wahid mentions that, the entire Millat-e Islamiyya should come out on the day of the Shahadat of Janab Sayyida. He mentioned and emphasizes a great deal that entire Ummat-e Muslimah, specifically the Shia and entire Ummat-e Muslimah, should come out in procession on commemorations of the Shahadat of this great lady, and talking about her merits and talking about the difficulties that she went through and her status, of course, which is known to all of us. So, inshallah, in the next series of majalis, we will see hopefully more and more people take this opportunity and come and display their love. Guess what? The ayat that I recited was about love as well. Ayat number 31 of Surah Al-Imran says, "Qul, O Prophet, tell them, in kuntum tuhibbun Allah fattabi'uni." Tell these people that if you claim to love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, fattabi'uni, then do my ittiba, meaning follow my footsteps. Whatever I tell you, follow. Whatever I stop you from doing, refrain from doing so. If Rasulullah and the ayat of Quran says, وَمَا آتَاكُمُ الرَّسُولُ فَخُذُوهُ وَمَا نَهَاكُمْ عَنْهُ فَانْتَهُوا. Whatever Prophet gave you, take it. And whatever Prophet stopped you from doing, refrain from doing so. That is considered to be the ittiba' of Rasul. And that is as far as your wajibat and muharramat are concerned. But Rasulullah did not give us his sirat only in wajib and haram. Rasulullah also gave us another instruction, which is actually the kalam Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as well, the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as well, where he directs our attention by telling us, قُلْ لَا أَسْأَلُكُمْ عَلَيْهِ أَجْرًا إِلَّا الْمَوَدَّةَ فِي الْقُرْبَى. Another thing which he made obligatory upon insaniyat, especially the followers of this madhab that he has brought, he says, another wajib upon you, aside from the haram and the wajibat that I have mentioned, is also to go ahead and show love and gratitude and muhabbat and mawaddat toward my Ahlul Bayt. So with that understanding, it is the taqaza, it is the demand of these personalities. They demand this. Not that they are asking for it. They demand, in a sense that this is an obligation upon us to go ahead and perform it. Just the same way you don't ask question when it comes to your salat. Does anyone question, why do I have to pray? Well, children might question this, but as you get older and you realize that it is an obligation upon you, you don't really question why part of the salat, because you've already understood that it's an obligation. Allah says, Aqimis salat in Quran, so I go ahead and pray. You don't ask, why do I have to fast? It's long days in the month of Ramadan. You just go ahead and do it. Ta'atan and ibadatan for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Similarly, when Rasul says that I do not ask anything except mawaddat for my Ahl Bayt, you go ahead and do this mawaddat. You don't ask question as to why and why not. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Why? Because our religion is based on Mohabbat. Ayat says what? In kuntum tuhibbun Allah fattabi'uni. If you claim to love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then do what? Do my ittiba. What will happen if you do my ittiba? I already mentioned what is following Rasul from wajibat and muharramat and these issues which he mentioned as far as your aqidah is concerned, the love of Ahlul Bayt. So these are all part of that you have to do the ittiba of Rasul. No questions asked. Why? Because we are muti amre mawla. We're not muti of our aql. You don't go ahead and say, well, it does not fit my aql that I have to love Ahlul Bayt. Well, it is the ita'at of the amr of your mawla. It's not the ita'at of your aql that you should go ahead and love them. But there is an answer to those who question through their aql saying, why do I have to love Ahlul Bayt? That answer will come as well. So when you say ittiba of Rasul is mandatory, what is the result of this ittiba Rasul? Allah said that, O Prophet, tell them, if they love me, follow me. That part is understood. What will happen if they follow me? يُحْبِبْكُمُ اللَّهُ وَيَغْفِرْ لَكُمْ ذُنُوبَكُمْ. The result of your love to Allah, which is resting on doing the ittiba of Rasul, will bear such fruits. يُحْبِبْكُمُ اللَّهُ. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will start loving you as well. وَيَغْفِرْ لَكُمْ ذُنُوبَكُمْ. And not only that Allah will love, Zabani Jama Kharj, no, وَيَغْفِرْ لَكُمْ ذُنُوبَكُمْ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will also forgive your sins. Wallahu ghafurur rahim. And indeed, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Ghafur, all forgiving, and Rahim, all merciful. So this was the explanation as far as this ayat is concerned. I'm sure you've heard a great deal about this ayat before, so I won't take too much time. In fact, I won't take too much time as far as the entire majlis is concerned. Maybe inshallah in the next 25 minutes I will conclude. That this deen is nothing but love. Halid deen illa al-hub. Right? There's a riwayat from our 8th Imam. He says, is there anything except hub in this religion? Ad-deenu huwa al-hub. Wal-hubbu huwa ad-deen. Deen is love. And hub is deen. Vice versa. There's nothing more beyond as far as the love is concerned. And hub is concerned. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions this ayat. Did not use the word Mohabbat. Could have used the Arabic word Mohabbat is there. But Allah used the word Mawaddat when it came to Ahlul Bayt. What's the difference between the two? Mohabbat is something which happens on its own. When you see something beautiful, you fall in love. You see a beautiful scenery, you fall in love. You see a beautiful person, you fall in love. You go to a new place and you see the nature, beautiful nature, you fall in love. But when you fall in love with this beautiful nature, this beautiful scenery, this beautiful person, does that mean you can't fall in love with something else? No. If you go to another place, then you say that, oh, mashallah, this place is much better than that. You fall in love with that place. You see someone more attractive and beautiful. You fall in love with that person. So Mohabbat can change. Depending, it's relative. You love this, and then you love that. And then you might even love something else. At times when you love something, and this you understand in relationship, at times you love someone, and when things don't work out, sometimes this love turns into hate. You don't want to see the face of that person anymore. What? You were falling in love. You were together. I don't want to do anything with that person. When you're no longer together. So this love, what does that mean then? That means this love was not something which was permanent in nature. This was not concrete enough. Love happens when you see something, it happens on its own. Where the word mawaddat is something that you do with your intention, with your irada. Love happens on its own. Mawaddat happens with your conviction, with your determination, with your irada. You do mawaddat, and in fact, as the time passes by, it is possible that muhabbat might decrease. You love someone when you were 20, you might not have the similar love when you're 40. But what is mawaddat? Mawaddat is something when the murur is zaman, as the time passes, the love continues to increase. And that is the reason Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not say, قُلْ لَا أَسْأَلُكُمْ عَلَيْهِ أَجْرًا إِلَّا الْمَحَبَّةَ. No, he said, إِلَّا الْمَوَدَّةَ فِي الْقُرْبَى. To make us understand that the love that is being demanded for Ahlul Bayt is not mainly Mohabbat, rather it is referral to Mawadda. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. I wanted to share with you a tradition regarding Janab Sayyidah when she went to ask for her right. This hadith of Fadak, no, I don't want to get into Fadak. You all know what Fadak is. You all know the history behind it. You all know what happened. That's not the discussion here. Discussion that I wanted to carry out for a little while is something which we don't talk about in the khutbah of Fadak. So there's a khutbah that Janab Sayyidah had given. The words that she uses in that khutbah is something which is mesmerizing. I'm sure many of you might have heard it before, so it might be a repetition for you, but it might be refreshing for many of us, as this is the kalam of this great lady. Now, before the words, the Ravi explains that how she went. Who is this Ravi? This Ravi is the son of Hasan Musanna, meaning the grandson of Imam Hasan Mushtaba, and the son of the daughter of Imam Hussein. So meaning this person who's narrating this hadith, Abdullah ibn al-Hasan, who was also known as Abdullah Mahad, because he was from one side grandson of Imam Hasan, and from one side grandson of Imam Hussein. So Abdullah Mahad, he is the one who narrates this riwayat. This is what he says, bi-isnadihi. Now many books of ahadith have mentioned the sanad of this khutbah. You know, some people have attacked this khutbah, that this khutbah is irrelevant, it never happened, she never said anything like this, and if she did, how long of a khutbah, how can a person stand for such a long time and give this lengthy khutbah, and how can anyone who's narrating memorize this? There weren't any tape recorders back then, there weren't any recording devices back then, there weren't any live streaming back then, so things would remain. If that was the case, how would Quran remain with us? If that was the case, how would these riwayat that you have will remain with us? All of these were narrated, person to person. So there were people at that time who were so strong as far as their memory is concerned. Just out of mizah. There was this king who had a lot of interest in poetry, who loved poetry. Shair or shairi, ash'ar. He would give his own ash'ar as well. And then he had a wazir who was also very sharp. So if the king would hear the poetry, he would memorize it right away. So for example, someone comes and recites poetry, this king would memorize it by just hearing it once. His wazir was so intelligent that by hearing the same thing twice would be able to memorize it. And then the darban who would stand at the door was also so amazing that by hearing it 3 times he would memorize it. Right? This was the sharp memory that existed at that time. So one day a famous poet came and he recited this poetry. After hearing the whole thing, the king said, "This is my kalam. And if you don't believe me, I'll recite it for you." He said, "No, Qibla, this is my kalam. I just wrote it for the first time. I recited it for you." He said, "If it's yours, then how do I know this?" The king narrated the entire kalam. He said, "You might have just heard me and you repeated after me." He said, "If you doubt, here's my wazir. You can confirm with him. Wazir, go ahead and recite this poetry." Wazir, after hearing it twice, recited the entire thing. Now this man who had said this poetry started doubting himself. Is it really mine? He said, "If you still don't believe me, ask my darban, come over." Darban came over. He said, "Go ahead and recite this qasida." Darban went ahead and recited the qasida as well, hu bahu. He said, "Yes, it is yours. It has nothing to do with me." That's how the sharp memory was for people. And people would be able to memorize things just by hearing it for the first time. So, no doubt as far as this khutbah is concerned. Why? Ibn Abil Hadid Mu'tazali in his Shari Nahjul Balagha narrates the sanad of this khutbah Fadak not through Shia sources, only through the Ahl Sunnah sources. So he narrates this. بِإِسْنَادِهِ عَنْ آبَائِهِ, that Abdullah ibn Hassan narrates from his fathers. Of course, Abdullah ibn Hassan was not there at the time of Janab Sayyidah, but he's narrating from his father, who narrated from Imam Hassan al-Mushtaba, who was there to go ahead and witness this event. لَمَّا أَجْمَعَ أَبُو بَكْرٍ وَعُمَرٍ عَلَى مَنْعِ فَاطِمَةَ فَدَكًا. When the first and the second Khalifa had gathered people and they prohibited Fadak by giving it to Janab Sayyidah, وَبَلَغَهَا ذَلِكَ, when this news reached her, Janab Sayyidah, he said, لَا ثَتْ خِمَارَهَا عَلَى رَأْسِهَا. She placed the chadar on her head. The word khamr or khimar means the chadar that you put on your head. In fact, Quran also uses the word khumurahinna in Surah Nur as well, which also refers to covering of the head. So those who ask where's the hijab in Quran, the ayat of Surah Nur talks about it, where the word khumur has appeared, which refers to covering of the head. Why khamar is called covering of the head? What else this word khimar means? Right? The one who has drunk comes from khamr. Khamr is alcohol. The one who is khamar, the one who has also already drank alcohol. Why is khimar meaning covering your head, while the person who drinks alcohol is also called khamar, or the one who has drank? Because when a person drinks alcohol, what happens to their mind? Their mind is covered and they're not able to think right. Similar word is used for covering of the head in Arabic. So he says, لا أثت خمارها على رأسها واشتملت بجلبابها. Now the word jilbab is also appeared in Quran, which talks about jalabibihinna in Arabic in Quran, which means to cover the entire body. So at that time in Arabia, women would cover their head with something separate, and they would cover their bodies with a, something which would, whatever you want to call it, this covering, which would be a burqa or whatever it may be, from neck all the way down. So Janab Sayyidah, when she leaves her house, she's wearing these two things to cover herself. وَاشْتَمَلَتْ بِجِلْبَابِهَا وَأَقْبَلَتْ فِي لُمَةٍ مِّنْ حَفَدَتِهَا وَنِسَاءِ قَوْمِهَا. And she did not go alone. She took her family members. Those who were lumatin refers to someone who was similar to you as far as your mindset is concerned, thinking is concerned. Yani those who are thinking on the same line. So you have friends who think alike. That's why you're friends with them. So she brought those people who would think alike with her. تَطَعَ ذُيُولَهَا. And as she was going, she would be stepping on her, this chadar or her burqa, if you want to call it. Why would you put your foot on your burqa if you're chadar? If you're wearing something long, for example, when I'm wearing this qubba or this jubba, sometimes what happens that it comes under the feet as I'm walking. Why? Because it's so lengthy, referring to the fact that that's how the women dressed back then. Not that she was in a rush to get there. It would not be appropriate to associate rushing to Janab Sayyidah. Rather, she was there and she was wearing something which was that long. Ma takhrimu mishyatuha mishyata Rasulillah. And it says that her walking was no less than the walk of Rasulullah. It reminded us how Rasulullah used to walk when people looked at Sayyidah walking to the darbar of the Khalifa. Her walk resembled exactly how Rasulullah used to walk. Hatta dakhalat, until she entered, and then she started speaking. She sat down and then she started speaking. I just wanted to share a couple of words that she said as far as this khutbah is concerned. Of course, a lengthy khutbah, it requires in-depth analysis. Many of our scholars actually have done the tashrih of this khutbah. There's a book by Ayatollah Muntazari. He did the tashrih of this khutbah. 16 lectures that he gave are the tashri and the commentary of the khutbah of Fadak. And the book has been translated into Urdu as well, and it is available for those who are interested. When she sat down, she began her kalam bihamdillahi wa thana'i alayh. She began her kalam with what? By praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and by doing the thana of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, was salati ala rasulihi, and by sending salutations on her father, Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And as soon as she said the praise of her father, the riwayat mentions فَعَادَ الْقَوْمُ فِي بُكَائِهِمْ, that people started weeping and crying. You hear her coming out in this fashion, her speaking in this fashion, and when you hear these words in Masaib, it makes you weep and cry. Guess what? When she entered into that darbar, those who were standing there, they started weeping as well. They started crying as well. فَلَمَّا أَمْسَكُوا, when they all quieted down, عَادَتْ فِي كَلَامِهَا, she returned back to her kalam, فَقَالَتْ, and then she said what? الْحَمْدُ لِلَّهِ عَلَى مَا أَنْعَمَ وَلَهُ الشُّكْرُ عَلَى مَا أَلْهَمَ. That praise be to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for that which He has given us as in ni'mat, and thanks to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and hamd and the thana of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for all the ni'mat that He gave us before. There's a reference to it. There are a couple of types of ni'mat. One ni'mat is when you are born, when you come into this world, and when you ask Allah, oh Allah, give me this ni'mat, Allah gives you that ni'mat. But there are certain ni'mat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He has already given to you without you even demanding those ni'mat. In fact, before your birth, those ni'mat are already present. In the kalam of Janab Sayyida, she is saying, I praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the ni'mat that He has given us after, and the ni'mat that He has given to us before we even existed. Before our khilqat. Min umume ni'ame ibtada'aha. All the ni'mat that He gave us from the very beginning without even us demanding Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for those ni'mat. وَسُبُوغِ آلَائٍ أَسْدَادَهَا. And how much He has given it to us. Not once or twice or 3 times. No, how much abundantly Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has bestowed upon us. وَتَمَامِ مِنَنٍ أَوْلَاهَا. And all the ni'mat that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to us as far as the minnat, as far as the bragging of Allah is concerned. So there are certain ni'mat that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives you, and then I'm using this word as a perfect translation for it, that Allah brags. He can brag. You and I are not allowed to brag. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can brag as much as He wants to. He's told us not to reproach, not to brag, not to go ahead and make our sadaqat batil. Right? He says, La tubtilu sadaqatikum bil manni wal adha. Do not void your good deeds by reproach, by bragging, by boasting. Right? We're not supposed to do that. When you do a favor to someone, are you supposed to go around talking about it? Oh, I've done a favor, I've done this, I've done this. No. You're not supposed to do that. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can do that. So she says what? That all the ni'mat that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave, and He bragged about it. What is one ni'mat that Allah gave us and He bragged about it? Ayat of Quran. لَقَدْ مَنَّ اللَّهُ. Indeed, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bragged after having bestowed upon us what? إِذْ بَعَثَ فِيهِمْ. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent amongst the people Nabiyyin, Anbiya, especially the wujud of Khatimul Anbiya, Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. That's one of the ni'mat of Quran that Allah mentions. And not only that He mentions, He said, لَقَدْ مَنَّ اللَّهَ. Allah is doing what? मिन्नत गुजारी, जिसको हम उर्दू में कहते हैं मन्नत, किसी पे मिन्नत गुजारी करना, किसी को जो है वो बार बार जताना. अल्लाह बार बार जताता है इस रसूल को तुम्हारे पास भेजने के बाद से. So that is the understanding of the khutbah of Fadak. Of course, there are some discrepancies that are found. Initially, it is mentioned that the Khalifa agreed to give. But then someone intervened and says, no, 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 what are you doing? We got to stand by the decision that we have taken. So then he retreated and he says, produce some witnesses who can say that this is yours. Janab Sayyida presented Ayman wa Rabah, who was the servant of Rasulullah. فَشَهِدَ لَهَا بِذَلِكَ. And he went ahead and, these two went ahead and gave witness that yes, this property was given to her by Rasulullah. And we've seen it. Ayman said it and Rabah said it. Then comes the hadith. And this hadith was narrated. نَحْنُ مَعَاشِرُ الْأَنْبِيَاءِ لَا نُوَرِّثْ مَا تَرَكْنَاهُ صَدَقَةً. We, the group of Anbiya, we do not leave any inheritance. Whatever we leave is sadaqah, and it is not the property of the children. Now, of course, you realize initially he decided to give, then retreats back because someone says don't give. Then he raises the question, okay, I'll give it to you if you produce witnesses. When the witnesses were produced, he also retreated saying these are not enough and sufficient witnesses. So going back and forth, and then saying once the witnesses said that we are here, he said, well, you know what? Rasulullah is Anbiya amongst the Nabi. And Nabi, as the riwayah says, Nahnu ma'ashur Anbiya la nuwarrith. We, the group of Anbiya, we do not leave any sort of inheritance. So there are a couple of questions that has to be answered here. Number one, Amirul Mu'mineen, Imam al-Muttaqeen, Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wasalam. And if you ever get into this sort of debate, you don't have to get into this debate, but if you ever, this is the logical way of answering this. Imam said that if I come here, and Imam used an example, he said, for example, a person by the name Zaid, if Zaid comes here, and he has money in his hand, and if I walk behind Zaid and said, this money is mine, who are you going to go ahead and ask for the dalil and the proof? Zaid or me? If Zaid is carrying the money in his hand, so Zaid comes in, he's got money in his pocket, and I come in and say, well, the money that is in the pocket of Zaid is mine. Who are you going to ask for adillah? Me or Zaid? Of course, you're going to ask me, not Zaid, because Zaid already has the money in his possession. In today's law, if someone has something in their possession, do you question them for having it, or do you question the one who's saying this is mine? The one who's claiming it. He said, Janab Sayyida already had it in her possession. You took it away. You should be the one answering the question how you attained it, and not asking Janab Sayyida as far as her possession is concerned. That's as far as Dalil Aqli is concerned. Number two, this riwayat of yours contradicts many ayat of Quran. You said, Anbiya do not leave any virasat. What are you going to do with ayat number 16 of Surah Namal? وَوَرَثَ سُلَيْمَانُ دَاوُدَ. That Sulaiman inherited from Dawood alayhi salatu wasalam. What did he inherit? The ilm of Hazrat Dawood? Yeah, sure, inherited also. But what else did he inherit? He inherited everything else that was the possession of Hazrat Dawood alayhi salatu wasalam. You don't believe in that ayat? That was one of. How about this ayat from Surah Maryam? فَهَبْلِي مِن لَدُنْكَ وَلِيًّا يَرِثُنِي وَيَرِثُ مِنْ آلِ يَعْقُوبَ. O Allah, so grant me from yourself an heir who may inherit from me and inherit from the house of Yaqub alayhi salatu wasalam. This is ayat number 5 of Surah Maryam, which is also talking about a child who will be the inheritor of Hazrat Yaqub, Nabi Yaqub alayhi salatu wasalam. These two ayat, and there are many such ayat which talk about how Anbiya leave behind inheritance, and the children of Anbiya do inherit that inheritance from them. And thirdly, and the last argument in this regard, if everything that belonged to Rasulullah will be confiscated because nahnu ma'ashirul anbiya la nuwarrith, then why is it that the wives of Rasulullah still have what they left behind for them? why aren't you taking away everything that is with the wives of Rasulullah? So Salma is alive at that time. Hazrat Aisha is alive at that time. The other wives of Prophet are alive at that time. Why aren't you taking everything that is with the other wives, which is also inherited by Rasulullah, given by Rasulullah? Why only take away the inheritance of the daughter of Rasulullah, Fatima Zahra, salamullahi alayha? These were just the arguments as far as the khutbah of Janab Sayyida is concerned. Inshallah, in upcoming majalis, we will talk more about the merits of Janab Sayyida. The ayat that I had recited for you talks about Mohabbat. قُلْ إِن كُنْتُمْ تُحِبُّونَ اللَّهَ. Indeed, it demands that we show this Mohabbat, and not just Mohabbat as I mentioned and clarified, Mawaddat to Ahlul Bayt. And one of the ways of showing brothers and sisters our Mawadda to Ahlul Bayt is by commemorating, is by coming to these Majalis-e-Ali, is by being present. We cannot say, well, Majlis is on a Wednesday, it's very difficult after work and this and that. Are you going to raise the same argument when Imam al-Zamana reappears on Friday, saying, Imam, we don't have time on Friday, it'll be better if you came on a weekend? If the Majlis is on a weekday, the Shahadat is announced on a weekday, make an effort, half hour, 45 minutes to an hour, to attend in person. Yes, there is the ability to go ahead and use the internet and watch it online, but more thawab will be, of course, attained if you came. Why? Who comes to this Majlis? We realize that every Majlis of Hussein that happens, this great lady, Janab Sayyida, is present. You think there's a Majlis Hazrat for this great lady herself? What is she looking for? That others, if they are here or not. Not that it matters to her. It's not that she is going to go ahead and do something in regards to this, oh, so-and-so showed up and so-and-so didn't show up. Because, alhamdulillah, the door of Ahlul Bayt is wide. Right? The door of Ahlul Bayt is wasir. That's why the riwayah says on the day of judgment, Rasulullah, when he would be present, he says, أَوَّلُ مَنْ دَخَلَ الْجَنَّةِ فَهِيَ فَاطِمَةٌ. The first person to enter Jannah is Fatima Zahra. And when the Rikab and the Sawari of Janab Sayyida will come, the Munadi will say, oh, those who are present, نَقِسُوا رُؤُوسَكُمْ غَضُّوا أَبْصَارَكُمْ. Lower your eyes, lower your heads, حَتَّى تَمُرَّ فَاطِمَةٌ. Until Fatima Zahra passes by from this place. Look at the maqam of this lady, that even in Jannat, you are supposed to lower your head when her Sawari is going by. No wonder she requested Amirul Mu'mineen to pick up the janaza at night time so that nobody would see her. She requested Amirul Mu'mineen, oh Ali, you are my wasi, you are going to perform my hunut and my kafan and my ghusl. Oh Ali, make sure that you hold my janaza at night, in the darkness of the night, so that nobody finds out. You know how difficult it must have been for Zainab and Kulthum. When a person loses their mother, an ordinary person as a mother, you want to weep and cry for your mother. But this is Fatima Zahra, and she's got two daughters who are very young right now, merely 5 and 6 years old. When their mother has died, they're not allowed to weep loudly. Why? People will find out. Ajrukum Allah. People will find out that Sayyida has passed away, and they will come inquiring. Amirul Mu'mineen wants to execute the wasiyat of Janab Sayyida at the night time. Amongst only a few men, this janaza is picked up. This janaza was not very heavy. by all means. Ali has carried heavier things on his back, but this is a janaza which is breaking the back of Ali. اجرکم اللہ. یہ علی کی کمر کو توڑ رہا ہے. ارے کیسے یہ جنازہ اٹھایا ہوگا. بس وہ وقت آتا ہے علی ابن ابی طالب پہ کہ علی جاتے ہیں. مختلف روایات ہیں. ایک روایت کے مطابق علی نے 7 قبریں کھودی, ایک روایت کے مطابق اس سے بھی زیادہ قبریں کھودی, اور پھر ان قبروں کو بند کر دیا. فاطمہ کو دفنا کے آ گئے. لوگوں نے اگلے دن کہا اے علی آپ نے یہ کیا ستم کیا, ہم کو فاطمہ کے جنازے میں شرکت نہ کرنے دی. لوگوں نے کچھ تجویز دی, ارے اس قبر کو کھودو, ان قبروں کو کھودو. ارے وہی وہابی مینٹیلٹی, ان قبروں کو کھودو, ان قبروں سے فاطمہ کے جسد کو نکالو تاکہ جنازہ پڑھ سکیں, دوبارہ دفنائیں. وہ علی جس نے گردن میں رسی برداشت کی, جس نے اپنے حق کو جانے دیا, اب ایک دفعہ ذوالفقار نکالی. ارے اب تک علی خاموش تھا, فاطمہ کی قبر پہ کسی نے نگاہ ڈالی تو علی سے برداشت نہ ہوگا. الا لعنت اللہ القوم الظالمین وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون انا للہ وانا الیہ راجعون. بار الہم اس بات قبول فرما, ہم گناہ گار ہیں, ہمارے گناہوں سے درگزر فرما. ہمیں اہل بیت علیہ الصلوۃ والسلام کے نقش قدم پر چلنے کی توفیق عطا فرما, ہمیں ان کی تعلیمات پر عمل کرنے کی توفیق عطا فرما. ہمارے امام کے ظہور میں تعجیل فرما, ہمیں ان کے اعوان و انصار میں شمار کر. ربنا تقبل منا انک انت السمیع العلیم. ماتم حسین.
یا حسین.
گھر سے علی کے رخصت خیر النساء ہوئی. گھر سے علی کے رخصت خیر النساء ہوئی. گھر سے علی کے رخصت مولا کائنات سے زہرا جدا ہوئی. گھر سے علی کے رخصت نساء ہوئی. گھر سے علی کے رخصت خیر النساء ہوئی. مولا کائنات سے زہرا جدا ہوئی. گھر سے علی کے رخصت گھر سے علی کے رخصت زہرا کو ایک پل بھی سکون کا نہ مل سکا. زہرا کو ایک پل بھی سکون کا نہ مل سکا. باد رسول اس پہ جو جور و جفا ہوئی. گھر سے علی کے رخصت خیر النساء ہوئی. گھر سے علی کے رخصت حسنین بھی اداس ہیں، حیدر بھی ہے ملول، حسنین بھی اداس ہیں، حیدر بھی ہیں ملول، کعبے کے بام در پہ جو رونق تھی کیا ہوئی، گھر سے علی کے رخصت گھر سے علی کے زینب کے سر سے سایہ زہرا نہیں رہا، زینب کے سر پہ سایہ زہرا نہیں رہا، بیٹی ابھی سے دہر میں کیا بےردا ہوئی، گھر سے علی کے رخصت گھر سے علی کے محسن شہید ہو گئے، در اس طرح گرا، محسن شہید ہو گئے، در اس طرح گرا، یہاں کربلا سے پہلے ہی ایک کربلا ہوئی، گھر گھر سے جس کا جنازہ اٹھا ہے تاریک رات میں، جس کا جنازہ اٹھا ہے تاریک رات میں، دن میں اسی کی لخت جگر بےردا ہوئی، گھر سے علی کے رخصت مولا کا گھر اجڑ گیا، زہرا گزر گئی، مولا کا گھر اجڑ گیا، زہرا گزر گئیں، اختر نہ پوچھ کیسی قیامت بپا ہوئی، گھر سے کہ رخصت خیر النساء ہوئی، گھر سے علی کے رخصت
بولی زینب کہ مجھے پاس بلا لو اماں، بولی زینب کہ مجھے پاس بلا لو اماں، بولی زینب کہ مجھے پاس بلا لو اماں، بولی زینب کہ مجھے پاس بلا لو، بولی زینب کہ مجھے پاس بلا لو، آخری بار کلیجے سے، آخری بار کلیجے سے لگا لو اماں، بولی زینب بولی زینب کہ مجھے تم بلاؤ گی تو دوڑے چل آئیں گے حسین، تم بلاؤ گی تو دوڑے چل آئیں گے حسین، ہاتھ پہلا کہ انہیں پاس بلا لو اماں، بولی زینب بولی زینب کہ مجھے روٹھ کر دور کھڑے روتے ہیں بھیا شبیر، روٹھ کر دور کھڑے روتے ہیں بھیا شبیر، کسی تدبیر سے تم ان کو منا لو اماں، بولی زینب بولی زینب کہ مجھے کیسے بہلاؤں گی کلثوم بہت چھوٹی ہے، کیسے بہلاؤں گی کلثوم بہت چھوٹی ہے، کوئی تدبیر بہلنے کی نکالو اماں، بولی زینب بولی زینب کہ مجھے کربلا میں مجھے رونے نہ دیا جائے گا، کربلا میں مجھے رونے نہ دیا جائے گا، تم میرے ساتھ یہاں اشک بہا لو اماں، بولی بولی زینب کہ مجھے شام میں زینب مزتر کا تھا نوحہ ماجد، شام میں زینب مزتر کا تھا نوحہ ماجد، تاکہ اس قید مصیبت سے نکالو اماں، بولی زینب کہ مجھے پاس بلا لو، بولی زینب کہ مجھے آخری بار کلیجے سے نکالو اماں، بولی زینب کہ مجھے پاس بلا لو اماں،
یا حسین یا حسین، متوجہ زیارت۔
السلام علیکم یا رسول اللہ، السلام علیکم یا نبی اللہ، السلام علیکم یا حبیب اللہ، السلام علیکم یا امیر المؤمنین و سید الوصیین، السلام علیکم یا فاطمۃ زہرا سیدۃ نساء العالمین یا ام الحسن والحسین سیدہ شباب اہل الجنہ، السلام علیکم ایتھا الصدیقۃ الشہیدہ، السلام علیکم ایتھا الرضیۃ المرضیہ، السلام علیکم ایتھا الفاضلۃ الزکیہ، السلام علیکم ایتھا الحوراء الانسیہ، السلام علیکم ایتھا التقیۃ النقیہ، السلام علیکم ایتھا المحدثۃ العلیمہ، السلام علیکم ایتھا المظلومۃ المغصوبہ، السلام علیکم ایتھا المضطہدۃ المقہورہ، السلام علیکم یا فاطمہ بنت رسول اللہ ورحمۃ اللہ وبرکاتہ، السلام علیکم سبط الرحمہ و امام الہدی الحسن والحسین سید شباب اہل الجنہ، السلام علیکم علی بن الحسین و محمد بن علی و جعفر بن محمد و موسیٰ بن جعفر و علی بن موسیٰ و محمد بن علی و علی بن محمد والحسن بن علی، السلام علیکم صاحب العصر والزمان، السلام علیکم امام الانس والجان، السلام علیکم شریک القرآن، عجل اللہ تعالی فرجک وسہل اللہ مخرجک فرجك وظهورك وجعلنا من أعوانك وأنصارك ورحمة الله وبركاته. There's a request for Surah Fatiha for Marhum Sayyid Akhtar Ali Musfi. Tonight's sponsors are Rehana Musfi and family. Please recite Surah Fatiha for their marhumin, especially Sayyid Akhtar Ali Musfi. Surah Fatiha. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim.
حضرات، کل شب جمعہ کے ریگولر پروگرام کے علاوہ مجلس عذاب منعقد ہوگی، جس میں عروج صاحب کے بھائی صاحب کی آپ حضرات سے درخواست ہے کہ تشریف لائیں. پر محمد و آل محمد صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم.